Whitetail Addicts is brought to you by Vortex Optics, Bar Brand, Raise the Bar, and by these fine sponsors. So on this particular farm, we've actually got two deer that we're going after. One deer is a big deer that I'm going after. He's a big 9-pointer. He's basically a mainframe 8, and he's got a little G4. I don't even know if you'd count it. I think it's about an inch long, so technically it would count. But he's just a stud of an 8-pointer. He's probably 150-inch 8-pointer. He's just a stud of an 8-pointer. That's the deer that I really wanted. But my wife also had a deer on this farm that she was going after, and this deer had been showing up pretty consistently. So I told her that night, I said, let's go after your deer. I actually had another farm. I was hunting another deer that was bigger, and he was more consistent. But her deer started showing up, and he was pretty consistent. So I said, well, let's go after your deer tonight. And of course, I always throw my bow in anyways because you never know. So there we are. We're setting in the blind, and sure enough, deer were starting to funnel out. And we started seeing more and more deer show up, and still waiting on her buck. And then lo and behold, the big 9 just comes out of nowhere. And this deer, he hadn't shown up for quite a while. So it was just kind of random that he just showed up that night. So here I am, I've got the camera in front of me set up on the tripod. Of course, I was just filming for her hunt, and we're trying to shift everything. She's got her crossbow in front of her, so we're trying to move the crossbow off to the side. I'm trying to put the tripod in front of her, get my bow up, try to get an arrow knocked. We're just kind of rushing around trying to get everything settled. And sure enough, the deer he goes right to the junk food pile right there at 20 yards. And just in the midst of kind of rushing things around and the deer ducking a little bit, I end up shooting this deer and didn't know what happened. It happened so fast. But long story short, I end up grazing the top of his back, and he ends up walking off. He walks out there probably 50 yards and just kind of snorts and looks back, and he really didn't know what happened. And eventually he walks off.
That's serious.
So this deer is perfectly healthy, and of course now I'm excited about this deer. I wanted to go after him. So I go back after him for the next several mornings, and it would have been 2 mornings later, sure enough, this buck comes in. In fact, I was getting ready to pack up my stuff. I was filming myself, and hadn't seen a single deer at all the whole morning. And sure enough, he comes out of the timber, and he walks right to me. And it's pretty neat. There's a point in there where a little bird actually lands on his antlers, which was pretty cool. But he comes right to the junk food pile right there at 20 yards. Now, I'd never hunted this set of a morning. So as I'm in the ground blind, how the sun comes up in the morning and it's actually shining down into my ground blind. And every time I would lift my bow up to draw down on this deer, he could see my bow in the sunlight, obviously reflecting back there in the blind. So every time I'd lift my bow up to draw, sure enough, he'd lift his head up and he'd look right at me. So then I'd have to put my bow back down or I'd have to just freeze. And I never could get drawn on this deer. And there was a certain point there where he actually stomped a couple times, and I thought, man, I'm going to screw this up for sure if I just don't let this deer set and just let him go. So here I had this deer in front of me for 20 minutes and had him at broadside for a good portion of the time. But like I said, every time I'd raise my bow up or I'd go to draw down on him, he would see something in the blind and he'd look in the blind, and then I just had to freeze. So I never could get fully drawn on this deer. So my theory was I was going to wait until maybe he started to walk off, and then he had his head, the backside of his head to me, and then I could draw down completely and then maybe get him to offer me a shot. But in between trying to film myself and as he was starting to walk off, he ended up just never giving me another shot opportunity after that. So after watching this deer for 20 minutes, just a stud of a deer, sure enough, he winds up walking off. And lo and behold, I never saw that deer ever again for the rest of the season. And I wind up hearing later that the neighbor shot a good deer. I don't know if it was that deer or not, but needless to say, I never saw that deer ever again on trail camera, in person. Yeah, so I don't know if that deer's dead. I don't know if God just took him right to heaven. I have no clue what happened to that deer. But that just goes to show that sometimes things don't always pan out, and hindsight's 20/20. But you just got to stay after it and keep hunting those deer, and eventually persistence will pay off. Whitetail Addicts is brought to you by Vortex Optics, Bar Brand, Raise the Bar, and by these fine sponsors.